All right, today we're jumping into a source that's going to flip some of our most basic economic ideas right on their head. It uses America's own founding documents to argue that we've got it all wrong when it comes to capitalism, socialism, and even freedom itself. Let's dig into how it builds this fascinating argument, which all starts with one single question.
So, the entire argument kicks off with this. It's a simple question, but it's really profound when you stop and think about it. The source points right to the Declaration of Independence, which says life is an unalienable right, something that can't be sold or taken away. And yet, we all have to deal with the cost of living. There's literally a price tag on survival. The source says this isn't just how things are, it's a deep, fundamental contradiction.
And here's how the source puts it, arguing that our survival has basically become a subscription service. I mean, think about it. Your food, water, your apartment, the electricity, you're making monthly payments for all of them. And according to this source, if you miss a payment, your access to the very things you need to live gets cut off. It turns a right into a commodity you have to constantly pay for. So this reframes the whole debate, right? It's not just about economics anymore. The source claims this is a full-blown constitutional crisis. It argues that every time the cost of living goes up and people can't afford it, that's real, measurable proof that we're abandoning the core promise of the country. A system that keeps making it more expensive to stay alive isn't protecting your rights, it's auctioning them off. Okay, so before we can really get into how the source tears everything down, we gotta set the stage. Let's just quickly go over the standard textbook definitions of capitalism and socialism that we all learned back in school.
Yeah, this should look pretty familiar, right? On one side, you've got socialism, government ownership, central planning, all about equal outcomes. And on the other, capitalism, private ownership, market-setting prices, and everyone's chasing individual profit. These are the two teams we always hear about. But, and this is a big but, the source argues this whole framework, at least in the American context, is basically a deception.
And that brings us to the real heart of this thing, what the source calls the great reversal. This is where it takes those definitions we just looked at and literally flips them upside down. The argument is that what we've been calling capitalism actually acts a lot like socialism. And the thing we're all taught to fear as socialism, well, from this point of view, it's just democracy. Now, the logic here is fascinating. The source says, look, how can you even have socialism, as in a powerful state that's separate from the people in America? The Constitution says all power comes from we the people. We are the government. So if we, the people, decide to own something publicly, that's not the state taking power from us. That's just us exercising our own collective power. It's just democracy in action. So if public ownership is just us, where does the real centralized, top-down power lie? This is where the source drops a new term on us: corporate socialism. It's describing a system where massive corporations act like their own little private, centrally planned economies. All the decisions get made from the top, but instead of serving the public, they're legally required to serve only one group, their shareholders. And this chart just lays it all out so clearly. With public institutions, you're a citizen, you have rights, you can vote the leaders out of office. But inside a private corporation, you're a consumer with a credit card. You have no vote, no say in who's in charge, and absolutely no constitutional rights. It really boils down to this: who are they accountable to, and can you actually fire them? This leads to probably the most provocative line in the entire source. It's designed to make you stop and think. The argument is that a corporation structure with a powerful CEO and a board making all the decisions is essentially a command economy, a private one, accountable only to a tiny elite. Okay, so that's the deconstruction of the current system. But the source doesn't just tear things down, it proposes an alternative. And it's not socialism, and it's not the capitalism we know. It's a concept called egalitarianism, and it's framed as the way to complete America's original promise. The key idea here is separating the things you absolutely need to live from everything else. Egalitarianism, in this view, isn't about the government controlling the whole economy. Not at all. It's about we the people, democratically guaranteeing that everyone has access to the bare minimum required for life. It's about building a solid floor that no one can fall through. To make it super simple, the source uses this building analogy. The foundation of the building? That's egalitarianism. That's your publicly guaranteed survival stuff. But on top of that solid, secure foundation, you build the rest of the structure. And that's where capitalism thrives. People are free to innovate, start businesses, and create wealth because they're not scared that one misstep will lead to total ruin. So what does this actually look like on the ground? Well, the source gives some concrete examples.
Picture a public option for basic groceries, or public utilities for water and power that are priced at cost, not for profit, a public healthcare system for essential needs, and public housing options to guarantee shelter. And the crucial part is, private markets for everything else, restaurants, tech, whatever, would just keep humming right along.
Now, here's the big twist. The source claims this doesn't weaken capitalism at all. It actually makes it way stronger. When people aren't living in constant fear of losing everything, they become better consumers. They're more willing to take a risk and start that new business. It creates a more dynamic, more resilient market economy for everybody.
So all of this builds to a final, stark choice. The source frames this whole debate not as left versus right, but as a much more fundamental question about where power should really live in a free society.
And we're back to that core theme, accountability. On one side, public institutions. You can influence them. You can change them through your vote. On the other side, what the source calls private tyranny, where your only real power is your wallet, and you have zero say in how the whole operation is run.
And this quote really captures the source's central warning. The idea that shrinking public power automatically gives you more individual freedom, well, this source calls that a fallacy. It says that all you're really doing is creating a power vacuum, one that gets filled by huge private entities that are completely unaccountable to you. Ultimately, the source boils it all down to this one stark choice. Either we the people exercise our power, our sovereignty, over the systems we need for survival, or we end up in a state of what it calls corporate feudalism, where we're all dependent on private lords for our very existence.
And so the analysis leaves us with one final provocative question that completely reframes the debate. When it comes to the absolute essentials of life itself, who should be in charge? Who gets to decide? We the people or we the shareholders? That's the challenge this source leaves us to think about.